Morning, everybody. We'll just give it a few minutes and wait for people to get into the meeting. So we'll probably start a couple of minutes after, and then I'll do some meeting logistics first. It's the quietest I've ever come across you, Dan.
I'm just waiting for you to start, Roger. I always appreciate you hosting these things.
Oh, very welcome. Okay, looks like people are still coming in at quite a rate of knots. We'll just wait for this, for the flood to slow to a trickle, and then we'll make our start. Okay. All right. Still coming in. Good turnout, Uncle Dan.
Yeah, I'm glad to see. I actually meant to tweet it again this morning to say, and I just didn't get in getting the live demo environment ready and such, and all the slides set. I did not get to that tweet button.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's make a start. I think we've got a good quorum of people here. So I'm Roger Cressy. I'm one of the founders of Cubix, the Cubix Group. We're an Oracle Platinum Partner company, cloud certified. We operate around the world. We're in ERP, EPM, BI analytics. But the core part of what I do for this purpose is that I'm part of a bunch of volunteers who help to run the AMD OUC. I've got the privilege of being able to host Dan today. I'll talk a little bit more about Dan later on as just before he starts to speak, but he's going to be talking to us about what's new in Oracle Analytics for Spring 2021. We'll then have some Q&A afterwards. So just if you wanted to go and have a look, this TechCast it will also be saved up to our archive. But if you have a look at some of the things we've done fairly recently, we've had Graph Studio and Oracle Autonomous Database with Hans Wiemann and Jan Sharma that did the most recent one. Prior to that, Philippe, who's actually a pop-up guest today, Philippe Lyon has joined us just for the first half hour of this session as well. And he did a session on making the most of OAC and Oracle machine learning native integration. I was going to say narrative integration, that wouldn't have worked, but maybe that's a good idea. If we go to the next slide, please, sir. There's just wanted to highlight the TechCast days coming up, May 11th to 13th. So just so you know, they are generally still split into three core themes for each day. The first being machine learning, then the second day is spatial and graph, and the third day is analytics plus. Yeah, please join us. Do join us for that. We also are keen for you to share your wealth of knowledge with us. So if you have something exciting that you're doing with the Oracle tech in these sort of areas, we'd love you to submit an abstract. We have a review board that looks at those on a weekly basis. And you could find yourself doing one of these presentations like the illustrious Dan is today. Something newer for us, we've actually got merchandise now that you can go in and order online. Please visit our store. We've tried to make them more interesting than just your common or garden varieties. So there should be something intriguing for you there. To join the org with. Next slide. And then really, there's lots of ways to connect with us. We have our own little newsletter that comes out little is probably the wrong description. It comes out every day with core topics around the themes of this organization. We have a Slack channel that you can join. And by the way, Carrie will pop these into the chat for everybody so you can grab them more easily than this. And this deck, of course, will be in the archive as well. We're on LinkedIn, or we have a Twitter account, Analytics and Data. and obviously Facebook. So with that, I just wanted to, one more bit of housekeeping. If you do have a question, please don't use general chat for it. Please use the Q&A. I'll be watching that, and I'll determine from the question whether it's something, also obviously with Philippe on, if he can answer the questions directly. He's a panelist and we'll be able to answer those as well. So really, without further ado, just to introduce Dan. So he's been working with Oracle-based BI, data warehousing, analytics, and all of the related technologies since 1986. So you can see his beard's as gray as mine. He speaks at lots of nationally recognized Oracle conferences. He's a big contributor to the community. And the one thing that he didn't put in his bio, but that I wanted people to be aware of, is he's also our fearless leader at the AMD-OUC, and has been donating large swathes of his time to this community for a long time. So thank you for that, Dan, and have at it. We're looking forward to hearing what you've got to share.
Thank you, Roger. I really appreciate you going through some of the housekeeping stuff on this. So let's kind of dive right into it. A little bit of background on us, who Vlamis is. We've been in business over 25 years. We specialize in exactly this area, and this is why we're always so thrilled to talk about Oracle Analytics on this. We also are pleased to be able to highlight that we're one of the few service partners with an expertise in Oracle Cloud Platform Business Analytics, and we're also authors of the book on data visualization for Oracle Business Intelligence, and have multiple ACE directors on staff, including myself. If you happen to use the Force Directed Graph plugin, it's available. We'll talk about it as available on the Oracle Analytics library. We're the ones responsible for that, so you may have seen that before. We're the ones that created that. This is in a series of webcasts. We've been doing this, going through all of this for literally a decade, and started talking about the new features in 11.115, and all the way through now. The latest is on Oracle Analytics Spring 2021 update that we're giving today. You'll also see a webcast if you're new to Oracle Analytics. You may be interested in, instead of just what's new, this intro to OAC running on the Autonomous Data Warehouse may be appropriate for you. That was given back and now a couple of years ago. And also, if you're interested in migrating from OBIEE, perhaps you're an Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition customer and looking at the migration process. We have one from a year ago when Oracle Analytics Server came out on the whole migration process. Those two I'd highlight. They're all available at vlamis.com/OA webinars. You can link to these. If you're not finding what you need, drop us an email. We'd love to help you out with any of that. As Roger mentioned, you can ask questions. This is what that looks like when you go to OA webinars. This is in that series, and you can just type in OA webinars into this chat box. As Roger mentioned, you can use chat or preferably Q&A to ask your questions on this, and we'll try to address that. We also have Philippe from Product Management to help answer any of those questions as they come up, just recognizing we're talking about new features, and it may be appropriate for them to help out with some of that. This is the main slide that's going to kind of control what we're going to show today. And so you'll see there's a lot of features to catch up on. The last time I presented on this was the release in the fall around, or summer around 5.7. And then there's been 5.8 and 5.9 have come out since. And I plan on demoing the ones that are yellow highlight. We'll see how that goes and do something a little bit different. You'll see I'll play some of the videos that are available to demo some of those. And hopefully I'll have a chance to demo something live as well if I can get through this fast enough. You can see there's a lot to go through in terms of data sources, visualization, general features, data prep and machine learning, and pixel perfect reporting. Send us an email if we don't go over your favorite one of all of this. So with that, there are on YouTube, there is a series of videos. They all start with bit.ly/OAC and then the release number. We'll be going through the ones on the 5.8 features and 5.9 features. This is what it looks like. I encourage you, highly encourage, they're short, 2 minutes and 47 seconds to go through this XYZ tile maps. This is where I get my information that I present to you all on every release. So go take a look. It's all the detail you're looking for. Good stuff. So with that, let's jump into some of the data source ones. One of these, the ability to access the remote data gateway for Essbase connections using an RPD file. This is new in OAC as a 5.8, which is about fall type time frame. You can use a remote data gateway to get at that, and you can access whatever subject area you're looking for and model that in your repository. So that'll be great for Essbase users using the RPD, using the remote data gateway. We also have the ability with large live data sets. It used to say that this transform requires the data set to be in automatic caching mode. Now we can use live data sets that are available with automatic enrichments. And also Oracle improved the data profiling performance on that as well as part of this. So for those that were stopped by this, know that now this is a new feature. And I like to go through some of these things because sometimes these hidden features you don't know about unless you hear about it and just presume that the old behavior is there forever. Oracle has been doing so many of these new features so quickly that it's hard to keep up on some of that. In the visualization area, one of the things that Oracle has done, let's just say over the years, different panels have gotten into the product where they aren't all unified. Now the page headers have more of a consistent look and feel to them, where the prepare, visualize, and narrate are in the center position consistently, that type of thing. They're more, it's a more harmonized type of interface. So you have a single header across all the pages in Oracle Analytics. As well, the legend properties, similar type story here. Now you'll find that legends are available on this, on more visualizations. Sometimes it was forgotten, if you will. And now the legend labels, fonts, and positions are added to multiple of the visualizations in here. So it makes more sense. You don't say, why did they not include that in there? We can now toggle on and off the use as filter. We have the ability when you hover over this area, a little icon will appear to use as filter. This is something that I would encourage you all to use in your projects as you create stuff. Use this. It is very nice for being able to filter. If you click on chairs, for instance, it would filter other visualizations in the same canvas to include that. And when that's occurring, when it's available, it shows as a light blue. And then when it's live, it's dark blue. It can be toggled on and off as well, which is a nice feature. Sometimes you don't want to do that. Speaking of filters, now we have the ability to turn on and off filter bars. The visualization filter bar, which appears up here to show how that's been filtered. You can manage that now and turn that on and off as well. One of the things that actually I tried doing this and was surprised to see it didn't work at first, and then in a later release it did. You can drag these filters now down to be a visualization level filter as opposed to a canvas level filter, and back and forth. There's times when you want to filter things at the canvas level, sometimes across all canvases. That's what that little pin does, by the way, in case you were wondering. And filter it at the visualization level, which applies only to this viz. So it's a nice feature that I think more people should probably take advantage of. We run into all the time when we talk to clients, it seems like everybody we talk to about using spatial and graph, about using maps says, what about Esri maps? And so now one of the things we have in the latest release out there is the ability to add web map services via the XYZ map service kind of protocol that's there. You can add externally hosted background maps so that they are more consistent with other map services you're using from, for instance, Esri, ArcGIS, and that type of thing. And there's 2 new formats that are supported You specify it out here in your parameters in the console area. And let me just show you a little bit of what that looks like. I'm going to pick snippets of these just to show you pieces of this. And if you can see, I'm already partway through this. You go in the area and specify, if I were to look at, for instance, Esri Street Maps, this is what the URL uses. Notice it has the Z, Y, and X parameters at the end of the URL. And you can simply cut and paste that and paste it into the add background tiled web map in the backgrounds area. Now, once you do that, then you can capitalize on that in any of your visualizations that use that. You can also specify various parameters in here. If this is something of interest to you, I encourage you to watch the full video. It's not long, it's 2 minutes, 46 seconds to go through all of this, and you can see what that looks like and take advantage of those map tiling services. So we've got that. You also have the ability to have heat map layers with image backgrounds. This is something that is a lot of excitement in the analytics community. The ability to put on these custom, this is a just a PDF file of a background of an office space, and you can see where people are spending their time on here. We can now combine that even with image heat maps. Here's an example of a store in this example, and this shows exactly how to build these types of visualizations. I've got a place of where people spend their time in this office location, and you can see because people have tracking devices or something like that. And then I can see as well where they spend time, and cluster map or a heat map image of this is now all available through the Oracle Analytics Cloud interface. Now, as well, because this is just a viz, I can combine that with other visualizations and use that as a filter. For instance, if I look by time of day and see where do people spend time in my office space, and if I then turn that on, notice I'm turning on that use as filter, and when I click on 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., I can say, where are people congregating down here? And then when I click on 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., I can see where they congregate at that time, closer to the entry, and vestibule noon to 3, and so forth. So a very nice type of way of building heat maps on top of your custom visualizations on there, custom image backgrounds. The area and stack the area have now been combined. In many ways, one could argue, gee, why didn't they do this in the first place? It may be somebody looked at it and said, hey, why don't we just combine these together? So now they're together, and you can have the transparency on your area maps, area graphs to control how they stack, and they're now combined. We have now enhanced sorting capabilities to look at your edges on this. And so if you want to sort by sales high to low or gross unit price, two of the measures that are on here, there are enhanced sorting options in here as well. And you can do multi-sorting in there as well. So let me show you what that looks like real quick. Jumping into part of the video. Here we're looking at sort by sales, and I'm looking at that. If I want to change that high to low, this has been there, but now we have the ability to sort by multiple different attributes, different measures. And as well, if I drag product category into here and look at that by color, I can sort that by a combination of customer segment and product category. One thing I'm still looking for is the ability to sort by anything. I'll tell you, you can, if you put it in the tooltip, you can sort by something. I'll just put in a little bit of enhancement request here, since Philippe hopefully is listening. I want to be able to sort by any column in the RPD, not just the ones that are visible. So anyway, I'm sure that'll eventually be added to the product. So this is what that looks like when you're sorting as well on a pivot table. Those options are available for pivot tables and tables in the header. You can multiple sort things. The exports have been greatly improved now to where it's more WYSIWYG. Some that have tried this in previous releases, if you gave up, try it again. It's much better now to export, for instance, to PowerPoint on this. You don't have this missing stuff on 5.8 where it hides. Now you see it's more what you would expect. Another big thing that will be huge for some of our customers is in relaxed export download limits. The new limits, notice with 2 OCPUs, you can go up to 2 million records if it's unformatted, or up to 200,000, greatly expanded from the 25,000 limit that we had back in the prior release. So take a look at that if you haven't seen before that these limits are now significantly expanded. Some of the icons moved around to make more room for things. It's improved the browser content display, and as well, you'll notice when we run queries live, this little wheel turns around instead, and the progress bar is greatly enhanced. We can configure for local time zones now and change that back and forth. Another problem we ran into is the artifacts. When you save a project, it now notices and says, hey, you may be saving this project with this data set, but that user you're saving for in a shared folder doesn't have access to the data set that you need. Would you like to share those as well? And it'll tell you actually which artifacts are affected. It's a much nicer way of controlling what objects are controlled with what other objects. For those that are looking to embed analytic applications or data visualizations into other applications, we can now do that with IDCS for OAC authentication and use security token for that and embed that directly. I'll show you what that looks like real quick in a custom application that was built. Here's the end of the video. You can see there are some steps, by the way, but now these are separate visualizations that are all being controlled by an external web provider. And so rather than having to do everything in OAC, you can control that through a third-party application. So we also have improvements in data actions. You can override previous actions in the target canvas. And when you reuse that, you can see those and they're automatically reset. You can turn those on and off, and we now have the ability as well to control whether those will multi-select or single select on here, and turn those on and off and control that in the data actions area. When you add new users and roles in here, you can specify the groups and memberships are now shown, and you can see what kind of indirect relationships. If somebody is a member of a group, it'll then show what groups that person is a member of, and you can drill into those relationships. And it's been redesigned to be a little more friendly in that release. In the data prep and machine learning area, in data prep, we have the ability now to fix the missing leading zeros in zip codes. There's a special repair, and in the recommendation engine, instead of having these leading zeros be stripped off, which happens when people make them numbers, it can repair them. And we also have the ability to trim the white space. I don't know, we've run into this in projects where you don't want the extra spaces at the end or at the beginning to appear. Now there's a trim button on here. Something you might miss if you didn't keep track of what's in the new features. One of the things we're excited about is in the machine learning area is the expansion of the integration with OAC into machine learning in the Oracle database, especially the autonomous data warehouse. There's something we think of as market basket analysis, but technically it's called frequent item sets because it's used for more than just market basket. It's anytime you want to combine things together and look at that, you can analyze that directly using OAC. So let me just pick a snippet of what this looks like in here. When you, in the data flow, you specify a database analytics, and notice that's a growing list. And now we have frequent item sets in here. And not only can I specify what columns I want to look like, what outputs, and I specify for the parameter, what's the transaction ID, and I specify in this case, I would go and pick the customer ID is what I want to kind of group it by. And then I can specify what the item value is. In this case, I would come down and pick the item code. And now that's going to do market basket analysis on the customer ID by item. I think you can probably see, depending on which columns you pick here, depends on the type of analysis that you're doing in here. So there's lots of parameters you can specify in here. I'm going to fast forward this to show a little bit of what that looks like as I look at, for instance, in here, the combination of Avery and Xerox. Those two items appear 132 times, and this is the analysis that's done in the database. So that's where the heavy lifting is done, and it's exposed through OAC. As well, I can look at multiple items together and do more calculations. Time to get into all of that. So we also have text tokenization, same type of concept, but now if I want to look at the top tokens in my service requests, what items appear most commonly, that's often expressed as a word cloud. This is what that looks like. So I'm looking at text tokenization, come in here, and I'm looking at the claims for looking at insurance claims, for instance. If I just look at the text token and specify for the occurrence, I want it to be colorized based on that. And I see that vehicle appears most often in here and versus car. And then you can even perform, because that's a standard visualization, if I join back to the claims data, I can even make this driven from another visualization and make it so that I can see which ones are most commonly occur, and even then have a break it down by another dimension, looking by color, by make, by model. And then in here, if I just pause, you can see, I can see Octobot is engine is the most common, Retrocarzy is brakes, and so forth, by taking advantage of those capabilities in the OAC platform. We also have now, this is something where the engine is pulling all of this together off of this, and you can have the predictions, not just the most common for some of these algorithms, but also number 2, 3, and 4, for instance, are in here. So you can pull all of this together in here and be able to see all of that. Let me go ahead and show what that looks like. In here, if I have the multiple attributes in here, not only the most common, the most important attribute, but the second highest weighted attribute and third highest weighted attribute. You have to kind of plumb this together a little bit yourself, by the way. But if, for instance, I'm looking at the counts of various customers by region, by marital status, and by sex, you can look at all of this and see what the highest weighted attribute. And even as I filter that down and click on, for instance, Northeast, I can see what the highest type of region is and the second most highest, and so forth in here, all live, because these now filter conditions are all live on OAC. That's all done in here. You can see it exposes all of the stuff that's a little bit behind the scenes is now exposed to you. And if you then go and grab those same data sets, treat that as a data source, you can plumb together your own applications with that. As well, there's a visualization kind of built for this from the model view, and this blog entry goes directly into that. And the related tab will show you more. And then if I show you what that looks like, you can, because a decision tree is actually understandable as opposed to some of the other black box algorithms. If I grab the node and the parent node of the decision tree, you can use OAC to explore directly what your model is, as opposed to just the output from it. So if I add this to the prediction model, pick a visualization, and I go and grab this is the decision tree, the node exploration. And then as I navigate on this tree, I can see what the output of the model is. And I can see the most important attribute was age. And what went into this branch of the decision tree was a low age, then branched down to low salary and so forth. And as I pick different nodes, it's going to come back with the rows from the analytics property of which ones are most important on here. So you can watch the whole video to see what that is. Last, I think, was Pixel Perfect reporting in BI and Oracle Analytics Publisher. we now have XML pruning and the ability to look at blob columns on here as well. So that will help those looking at that. Now, I do have a little bit of time here. Hopefully, if Roger lets me go over a little bit in the 6.0 features, this is in the process of coming out right now. This is what's out there. I'll talk a little bit about Oracle Analytics, the quality insights, multi-table data sets, and hierarchical columns. By the way, I plan to go over this more once we have the release fully on May 5th. We'll focus on the newer features, and you can sign up for that presentation in here if you go and sign up, and we'll make sure you get more detail on this in about a month when we have the chance to look at these more carefully as they come out.
Interject just very briefly. I know that Uncle Philippe has to leave us. Philippe, I just wanted to thank you for joining us today. It's an honor to have you on. And yeah, Dan, by all means, carry on. Everybody seems to still be riveted. So
still have people on. Okay, they haven't dropped off yet.
Oh yeah.
And thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you,
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And if there's stuff that comes up in the Q&A, we'll try and get answers to those, by the way, as we can, and pass those by people.
Yeah, we're clear at the moment, just so you're aware.
Okay, we're clear. Okay, great. I kind of raced through some of these on purpose, so I don't have time to watch the chat log and the Q&A. So thanks for monitoring that. In the data quality insights, let me show you a little bit. I'm going to just pick out 3 of these. I have been so excited for this new feature to come out, because this is what we run into in the real world in building these types of applications. And that provides instant feedback on what is the profile of the data that you're looking at. And this is coming out very, very soon, in the process of kind of rolling out at this point. So you don't expect to see it now. This is futures, but soon futures on this. You know, I can click on the YouTube, but you know, this is too much fun not to show live. So let me click on here. You'll notice this is a instance of this. And if I click on this pencil, by the way, that's one of the things that changed. If you come in, you'll say, where is it? Where is it? If you click on the data tab, I can then look on and click on this pencil, and I'm now editing the data that's coming into this analysis. I went ahead and selected one, and now you can see all the steps that have been transformed in this data set. And if I see the columns, you're used to seeing this before in terms of what the sample data is. But then if I look at this by business unit name, I can see what the most popular data is via this bar graph. It kind of comes from that big data discovery information. You can see for department name, consulting is the highest. These are students coming in or employee attrition from various departments in consulting. But then I have this little small window that allows me to scroll this and see the top 10, and I can scroll it down to see what else there is. As well, if I click on Sales Central US, it will filter automatically the rest of the data, so I can focus in on what are the rows of data for Sales Central US, what are the rows for consulting, and so forth. Or click on this to undo that filter. If I look at this by grade code, you can look at it by grade code as well and see what grades are there. And if I want to filter to missing or null, I can do that. And I can even, if I double click on here, I can specify N/A or missing, something like that. And I can even change the data. And as I do that, notice the data changes down here, and it replaced department name. I can change that and see my results, and the red represents missing values that are there. And if I make them the same as something else, it'll merge them together. So if you have 2 states, MO with capital M, capital O, and you have MO as capital M, lowercase o, it'll merge those 2 together. That type of thing is all supported in this interface. Very nice interface for viewing the data. So I've decided to show that live instead of the video, but you get the idea, hopefully. More things in there that the video will go through. Another big thing is the ability to have multi-table data sets. I think this is going to start to change the way people operate with the data. Now we can join together multiple tables without having to use an RPD file and not doing this at the project level. We instead do this at the data set level, so that you don't have to specify it each time. I'm going to forward here. I'm going to chance to get this all the times on here. But notice I'm going against an Oracle database connection, and I have access to all of these types of connections, tables there, including a manual query where you just type in SQL, and then I can drag over various tables and do my modeling directly in the DV interface. Maybe I grab channels, countries, customers, products, a typical star schema type thing, and specify the joins and control how those join characteristics occur, and join these together and save this off as a multi-table data set. Notice you can have a left, a right, or a full outer join and so forth on this. And there's more to watch in here as you look at this. So all of this is live, very nice capability for end users. Now, mind you, power users, to be able to do their own type of exploration of data sets and save those off as kind of templates. I think the goal is to eventually be able to use this to lobby the IT department to make this available to everybody. That type of thing is what you'd want to do. All right, there's more in here. There's more videos to show how you do this with mashup capabilities, that type of thing as well. Trust me, you want to look at that. The last one I want to highlight is the ability to have hierarchical columns. We get back, yay, finally, the ability to expand in a pivot table or a table. I can expand and contract the individual nodes. This is shown on time. It also works on geography. It also works on the across dimension, and be able to consume these hierarchical columns, which before were hidden. And it was one of the big advantages of the old classic interface. Now we have this in data visualization as well. So if we show what that looks like, I'll just give you a sample of this. If we scroll ahead a little bit on the hierarchical columns, when you pick a subject area, I can take a look at the hierarchical columns, pick a best visualization, and notice I can expand and contract time. And look at this. This is especially important for multiple level, be able to look at data at multiple levels at once. This also works with skip and ragged hierarchies. I haven't had a chance to fully try it all out with ragged hierarchies, but that's what the documentation says. You can put this also in, you can include pieces of a hierarchical column up in the filter, but not the hierarchical column itself. But then you can expand and contract these things as well, multi-select, remove selected, keep selected, and so forth. One thing I will point out when you do that, notice that the total is the total of what's visible. It's not the total time went down to 1.6 million. Now, some people say that's the right way to do it. Some people say that's the wrong way. Just know that's the behavior that is exhibited, that you get that total instead of the total time being the total for everybody. It is filtered by what is being shown or what is selected. So that's it for hierarchical columns. I said I would wrap up and join us. If you want to see more of that type of stuff, I'll just back up. I'll be going over this more in May 5th. As this rolls out to everybody, I can talk more freely about all of these different capabilities, and you'll be able to capitalize on them more effectively. With that, I'll also point out the Oracle Analytics Library has some plugins in here. Here's where, for instance, our Force Directed Graph plugin is. Take a look at some of these demos that are out here in Overview and Gallery. There are demos in here. You can see the URL, and I've got this in the resources page, and you'll see them at bit.ly OAC library. And there's also live demos that you can give to anybody. If you say, hey, they don't have access to our instance, bit.ly/OAC live, by the way, case sensitive, allows anybody to run Oracle Analytics Cloud, no cloud account, no anything. You can't create your own visualizations, but you can run what's there. And notice the new features for 5.8 are here. The 5.9 features are here. And you can see the pattern that they're using for those URLs for even stuff that's coming up that's not quite out there yet. The documentation, by the way, if I click on this documentation, this is the documentation, and notice here's what's in 6.0. So it's out there on the web, folks. So you can take a look at that as well. So we know it's in the process of coming out. With that, I will turn things back over to Roger, see if we have any questions that people want me to go over and anything else.
So some of them, Batman Jonathan Clark has answered for us already.
Okay.
Jonathan, thanks for that. There was a discussion again, which Jonathan has answered, but I thought was worth exposing in general, is a question around versions. And I think in our previous discussions, you and I were talking about this. If you set up a new instance now, you'll get 6. Is that correct? But 5.9 is what is currently, obviously what you've been showing up until you showed this 6 specific features.
So what we found is we were told that we would get 6.0, but then when we tried it, we still got 5.9. So I think it's literally, Roger, day by day, hour by hour, what you get when you set up a new instance.
Okay.
But I'm happy to have somebody else correct me if I'm wrong on that. Maybe it changed this morning. it's that kind of, and it also has to do, I think, with where you are in the world, Roger, and where you are hosted.
Perfect. So it's imminent. Yeah, you will soon have your dirty mitts on version 6. So the other thing that was asked by Kenny in Kansas, I think we know who that is. Can you show OAC and OML integration? Now, Jonathan asked a question. He said that's a big topic. Is there something particular you want to see? Is there something that you've got that you can give a very high level view of?
Yeah, I think actually, Roger, if I come back here, let me see in this. There's a webinar that goes into that. It's in this OAC 5.6 and 5.7 new features. That is available up on our website. We focused, that release had so much with machine learning. We gave a separate webcast on just the integration on machine learning with Oracle Analytics. So I'd encourage person, reach out to me if you're not finding it, but we have a webinar. I think it was on August, it was like a week later. So that would be August 12th on specifically that topic, because there was so much to cover with these, and it was on the integration. Okay.
Thank you. And that rounds off the questions that we have from today.
Okay, super. Let's see. I do see one out there that I'll try and pick off real quick. Does the EPM hierarchy enhancement work with a native direct OAC connection, or do you have to go through the subject area? I believe that goes through the direct connect on there. I wanted to highlight, I've seen conflicting information. When I tried this out, the hierarchical columns worked without EPM, but the documentation says it works with EPM. So it's a little bit of, does it require Essbase? I think they're still figuring some of these details out, or at least it's there in the product. It's a question of how do they document it.
Sorry, I see something also from Walid.
Sorry?
There's a continuous question from Walid. Also later on, he's saying, when I click on one column bar of DV, all the other DVs in the insight will be affected and filtered. How can I stop this?
Click on one column bar of the visualization. I assume that's what that means.
Yeah.
All the other DVs in the insight. I don't know what he's referring to.
Okay, but maybe that's something we can take offline.
Yeah, yeah. I'll try and get back to Walid on this and try and, as tough with given these is trying to understand the context of the question. Yeah. It's also how fast can you type in some of this as well.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
I missed some of those.
So we'll leave this live for a little bit, Roger, if that's okay, and then people can click their question, put their questions in, and we do get a transcript of this, and we'll try to follow up with people if you have questions. We'd love to help you out. As you can tell, we're excited by the new features that are coming out. It seems like we can't keep up. That Oracle, they put so much out on each release on this. I also mentioned in the abstract that would talk about what's in Oracle Analytics Server. I'll put that in real quick. OAS 5.9 is now out and includes all the features that we were talking about that's new in 5.9. It obviously does not include the 6.0 features that we talked about kind of at the end. But OAS, if you're looking for this, it's out there now. It gets updated about once a year, whereas OAC seems to come out every month, maybe once a quarter with new stuff coming out. So, Roger, anything else?
One more question from Aditya Kola, and he says, within OAC, what's the difference between connecting to Oracle application versus Oracle database? I'm not sure what application.
Yeah, I think it depends on which application they're talking about. So for instance, one of the applications would be OBIEE. You can actually connect to an OBIEE instance as a data source, in which case you get the presentation of the data that OBIEE presents, the presentation layer, if you will. Whereas if you connect to the Oracle database, you're going to get the raw data, including the table names, the column names. There's no renames. There's no extra logic. I think that same type of thing would apply when you're connecting to any application. You're going to get the presentation of the data that it presents, as opposed to the raw data, the way it is presented in the database proper, names of tables, names of columns, and so forth.
Such as Essbase as well, yeah.
Same thing with Essbase, exactly. Yep.
All right, we're coming up to, in fact, we're over our 45 minutes now. So there's one more question. Any migration tool available to migrate from OBIEE to OAS?
So the answer on that is, definitely in terms of migrating is a matter of just, we actually have a specific webinar on that topic and migrating from OBIEE to OAS, but generally you just export stuff out and import it in, or use the migration utility to do that. Just be aware that when you're migrating, you're bringing the presentations or the objects as they existed in OBIEE, and generally they all just run in OAS. What you don't get is it does not automatically transform things to the new data visualization interface. It's still, everything is in the old classic answers interface. Just be aware of that. And Roger, welcome. If you have a different answer, go for it.
No, I agree with that.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
So, all right, so there's really only one unanswered thing, and that's you can circle back with Walid from the chats afterwards. But with that, just remains for me to say, Dan, thanks as always. Great presentation. I love the way you've pulled it all together. It's a nice, succinct way of me getting to cheat a little bit and see all the features and the core features and that are new and exciting. So thank you very much for your time today and for presenting for us.
Thanks, Roger, and thanks ANDOUC for the opportunity to present to you all.
Thanks very much. So with that, we'll end at this stage. Carrie, thank you. This will be posted on our archives along with everything else.